It began on an ordinary spring morning in 2019. Mist still clinging to the hills of rural West Virginia. Birds cutting through the silence of a small town where everyone knew everyone. By the end of that day, that quiet would be shattered. A beloved truck driver named Philip, Bucky Barlo, would vanish without a trace, leaving behind a burned-out pickup, a trail of rumors, and a community spiraling into fear. How could a man so loved simply disappear? How could a town so small hide something so dark? When truth finally surfaced, it revealed not just a murder, but a betrayal so senseless it still haunts Preston County. Our hearts go out to the family of Philip "Bucky" Barlo. Bucky was more than a name. He was light, laughter, and loyalty wrapped in one soul. His presence left a mark on everyone who had the privilege of knowing him. We mourn his passing deeply and stand with his family during this painful time. May they find comfort in the memories they shared and strength in the love that surrounds them. Rest peacefully, Bucky. You'll always be remembered with warmth and gratitude. This is True Crime Diaries, where we delve deep into the most chilling and complex criminal cases, bringing you the untold stories behind the headlines. Join us as we uncover the facts, the twists, and the shocking truths behind some of the darkest moments in history. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more gripping stories. Let us know your thoughts below. We'd love to hear from you. Kingwood, West Virginia, rests high in the Allegheny Mountains, overlooking the Cheat River Valley, a quiet patch of green where families stay for generations and gossip travels faster than wind through pine. Just south lies Tunnelton, a hamlet of barely 200 souls. It's the kind of place where people wave from their porches and still leave keys in ignitions. In that sleepy town lived Philip Barlo, better known as Bucky. 61, big-hearted, with a laugh you could hear before you saw him. He'd spent decades behind the wheel, hauling loads up and down the interstate for hillside trucking. Friends say he was the kind of man who'd pull over to help a stranger fix a flat, who taught neighborhood kids to roller skate on Sundays, and who never forgot a birthday.
Been having any kind of issues?
Not that I'm aware of. Last time I talked to him, that was his breakfast, which would have been Mother's Day. He was bitching about his neighbor being an outlaw. Other than that, everything was normal.
Is he married?
Yeah. Paul said he never called or showed up. He said that's how they knew.
Has he got anybody he lives with? Kids? Nobody?
His fiance, girlfriend, whatever you want to call her, lives in Indiana.
And where?
Indiana.
Indiana.
See, his plan is to retire in September and move to Indiana.
What's your thoughts about all this? What's your thoughts about all this?
I don't know. It was normally Bucky's the type of person, and you have to forgive me, but if the man's gonna make a felony, that he tells everybody. I mean, everybody knows anything and everything about him. And normally, you can say in clockwork, he normally shows up between 12:15 to around 12:45. He's here. I noticed he wasn't here last night, and I went over and asked him if he was coming out later with the rest of the drivers. We didn't know. He wasn't scheduled off for anything. We didn't know either why he didn't show up or not.
Any enemies that he had that you know of? Somebody he didn't like?
The only person that we knew was that his neighbors. You always heard him talk about fighting with his neighbor.
Who's that?
I don't know what his name was.
You don't know his name?
It's our daytime mechanic. It's his nephew. But I don't know what his name is.
After years of long nights and missed holidays, Bucky was weeks from retirement. His partner of 17 years, Mary Butler, had already moved to Indiana to prepare their new home. He was supposed to join her soon. He'd earned that peace. But peace, it turned out, was something Bucky would never see. It was May 29th, 2019, a Wednesday. Just after 7 a.m., a local resident called the Preston County Sheriff's Office. There was a maroon pickup truck idling on Shower Bath Road, near the Cheat River. Smoke drifted from its windows. To the caller, it looked like someone was using drugs. When Deputy Childers arrived, the truth was stranger. The truck sat empty, gray smoke curling from the cab. Oil slicked the ground, glistening like tar in the morning light. 2 containers of motor oil lay in the bed, one still full, one drained. The smell of burnt metal clung to the air. Inside, the seats were scorched, but not consumed. Whoever tried to torch this truck hadn't finished the job. Tire tracks led away from the scene, suggesting another vehicle had been there.
Hey, this looks like I don't know if it's fresh, but it comes from right here on the side of this truck. There's like a tire tread going out that way.
When the plates came back, the deputy's stomach turned. The truck belonged to Philip Barlo. Within the hour, his nephew Perry arrived, breathless and pale. He confirmed the truck was his uncle's and immediately phoned Bucky's employer. Hillside Trucking hadn't heard from him. He'd missed his midnight check-in, something he never did. By noon, the call everyone feared came through. Philip Bucky Barlo was officially missing. Mary Butler raced back from Indiana, heart pounding the entire 6-hour drive. When she pulled into their small home on number 4 road, she was met by police tape and flashlights cutting across the woods. Deputies and volunteers combed the area where the truck was found, pushing through thick underbrush along the riverbank. Friends, family, and neighbors joined in, dozens of them, calling Bucky's name until their voices broke. But there were no footprints leading to the river, no sign of a struggle, just a truck half-burned, sitting like an unanswered question. In towns like Tunnelton, unanswered questions don't stay quiet for long. By the second day, rumors bloomed like wildfire. Someone claimed Bucky had fought with a neighbor. Another swore it was drug-related. Theories filled Facebook pages, diner booths, and gas station corners. Captain Travis Tichnell, leading the case, tried to tune out the noise. He focused on facts. Bucky had last spoken with Mary around midnight. He was supposed to clock in at 12:15 a.m. He never did. No calls, no sightings, no bank activity. It was as if the earth had swallowed him whole. Detectives started close to home. They visited Bucky's neighbors, Laura Martin and Robert Bobby Quinn, who lived next door. The couple claimed they'd gone to bed early. Their washer and dryer had been running, they said, drowning out any noise. They hadn't seen or heard a thing. Their story seemed ordinary enough, until police learned of another neighbor, Craig Mloud, and his friend Chris Thorne. The local rumor mill painted them as troublemakers.
Yeah, because I don't like this. I mean, nobody here does, to be honest with you. If he's the culprit, we're going to make sure we get caught, believe me. Well, I can tell you, by the way he's acting, he's guilty. So, we're about to go find out here in a little bit. If I can send you your way, I will. I'll call you.
Is there any way you can record it?
Yeah.
Do you have a recorder?
I got a cell phone.
Does it record? Like an audio recorder? Why don't you do that?
All right. The whole conversation. I'll just sit recording when I get there. All right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Would it not look odd if you get your phone out and then hit record, put in your pocket and say, so tell me about killing Bucky here.
If you kill Bucky, you might be thinking he's a badass. You know what I mean?
Tell me your guy, because you've never
I'm not worried. I think he's guilty, honest to God. I don't know how or why, but...
You see Chris Thorne as a badass, though?
No, I see him as a stupid punk-ass killer.
Greg Maxwell's wife said he'd had a falling out with Chris Thorne the night before, last night. Yeah. And
I'm reaching out to you. Just up one.
Look, I have a feeling here. Clint McLeod and
listen. I'm reaching out to you. Like I said, you've always given me good information, whether you're in the right or whether you're in the wrong.
Right.
I don't think that you have any involvement with it.
Right.
I don't.
No, I don't.
But I figured of all people to talk to, you'd be a good one to reach out to.
Believe me, I'm trying to figure that shit out myself.
What's your guts telling you?
Chris Thorne and McLeod. Has to
Why?
Be. because they're always together. They're always running together, and I think McLeod's the fall guy for Chris.
You think what?
He's the fall guy.
What do you mean the
for
fall?
Chris? Whenever shit hits the fan for him, he's going to use McLeod as the fall guy.
So you think, who do you think had the problem with the man?
Who? McLeod.
You think McLeod had the problem? Yeah. And what do you think would happen from there?
I know he was going to take a golf club to him.
You said you got a message from your sister?
Yeah.
Who's your sister?
Elizabeth McLeod.
How is she a McLeod?
She's married to Craig's nephew, Keith. Well, the message she sent me was one she forwarded that Craig had sent her. I used to date Craig, and I guess where Bucky lives is like a neighbor to where me and Craig used to stay. Craig was setting my stuff up in Bucky's property.
Say what?
He was setting my stuff up on the Bucky's property.
What do you mean?
Well, me and him broke up, and he
put your stuff on Bucky's property?
Yeah. He just told me to come get it. Well, Bucky thought it was trash he was setting up there. So Bucky came out and was asking him to move it and stuff. And Craig apparently, the message my sister forwarded to me, Craig was saying that he was going to go beat Bucky with the golf club for touching my stuff. And I didn't know.
When was this?
My sister just forwarded the message to me today, but it would have been the day before Bucky went missing that Craig and him got into an argument, and he was supposed to beat him with the golf club or whatever. He chased him with the golf club or however it was.
That's all that you know?
Yeah, I never even met Bucky before. And then I heard where he was missing, and then my sister told me that, and I'm like, kind of seemed weird that Craig said he was gonna chase him with the golf club or hit him with the golf club, and then he's missing. So.
Like at Barlo,
he's the one that's missing, so that's kind of where we were heading. That's why everybody's just all going to converge at one time, and we'll look at it one time. If you guys don't mind, you guys have IDs handy so I can make sure everybody that's witness can
Go back to my house and get it.
Well, I pretty well know who you are.
What I was told is that somebody come here and told me that Chris Thorne got a hold of her and wanted them to help him. And
who are they?
He took a golf club and hit the guy in the head. He didn't intend to kill the guy. But dying, of course. And he jumped in one, put him in different places.
Well, who told you that?
Somebody out of Tunnelton.
It's more or less rumors, except for, Turtle. He told me that the day that he supposedly murdered him, Chris Thorne.
Okay.
I called him and asked him to use his grinder. So I didn't take no notice. I told him no, because you don't trust him. He's a thief and everything else. But now he thinks he knows why, because he needed help with that. And then he's telling. Then later on, he told him that he hit him with the golf club in the back of in the head, somewhere in the head, and that she didn't mean to kill him. That he hit him to knock him out, and it killed him. I mean, I heard stuff, rumors, but I don't know nothing for a fact. All I know is that Turtle said, hey, he called me wanting those bars grinder or something.
Okay. Called you on your cell phone, and how did the conversation start?
Well, you did it, right?
That's what she said. And did you know who she was talking about?
Yeah.
How do you know who she's talking about?
Because Chris is dirty.
Okay.
Well, when I first heard of, read about it or whatever, the first person I thought of was Craig McLeod, because they never got along. You know what I mean?
Nobody else, though?
No. Well, Preston County.
They said they cut him off and spread him around and buried him after they had robbed him.
And who was that?
Well, there's supposed to be 3 other people involved in it. I don't know those 3.
It could just be a weird theory, too, at the same time. It's always a possibility.
When Bucky disappeared, whispers turned into accusations. People claimed Craig and Chris had done something terrible. Theories grew wilder by the hour. Some said Bucky was killed near a spot locals called the Caves, then thrown into the Cheat River. Others whispered that a man nicknamed Turtle had lent Chris Thorne a grinder. the implication chilling everyone who heard it. Still, no evidence backed any of it. Only gossip, ugly, desperate gossip born from fear. Bucky's sister told reporters he was supposed to retire. He was finally gonna rest. Her voice broke on the word rest. As days passed, tension grew heavier than the mountain fog. The burned truck became a symbol. Every time townsfolk drove past, they slowed down, staring, wondering what story the ashes were hiding. Police had no weapon, no crime scene, and no witnesses. Yet everyone seemed to know who did it. Somewhere between the gossip and the grief lay the truth, and Captain Tichenal was determined to find it. If you're following this case, what do you think happened to Bucky Barlo? Share your thoughts below, and make sure to subscribe for more real-life stories that remind us how fragile trust can be. 9 long days after Bucky vanished, on the quiet morning of June 8, 2019, a phone call shattered the uneasy calm that had settled over Kingwood. A small group of hunters, walking along the Cheat River, spotted something floating downstream, a body, face down in the current. Pat Zukowski and his grandson Braden waded closer, hearts pounding. What they found would haunt them forever. The body was shirtless, the jeans tangled around the ankles, boots still on. It had drifted nearly 80 yards downstream from the bridge. They hurried to the nearest house and called the sheriff's office.
My brother said he seen something floating in the river this morning, and he's got a bunch of the raptors out looking at the Cheat River right now. Okay. But we just thinking the same thing you're thinking. If the truck burned up on this road, if anybody went in this water, I mean, they would show up at the bottom.
When deputies arrived, they knew the search for Bucky was over. Though decomposition had made identification difficult, Pat whispered, "I've known Bucky all my life. That's him." Moments later, a shirt was found caught under a fallen log, blue and white stripes, with 2 chest patches. One read Hillside Trucking, the other, Philip. There was no doubt anymore. Philip Bucky Barlo had been found, and he had been murdered. The medical examiner confirmed what investigators already suspected. Bucky's death was violent. He'd suffered a deep laceration to the neck, most likely from a knife or a blade. The wound was precise and deliberate. Whoever killed him had looked him in the eyes when they did it. The absence of a weapon told detectives something important. The killer had taken it with them. But there was something else. For a man who had bled so heavily, there was not enough blood in or around the truck. That could only mean one thing: Bucky had been killed somewhere else. And if that was true, then whoever did this had not only murdered him, they had transported his body, burned his truck, and staged the scene. Investigators worked through every possible lead, but Kingwood was already several steps ahead, at least in imagination. Some locals insisted that Craig Mloud and his friend Chris Thorne were to blame. Others whispered that Bucky had been murdered up by the caves, a remote, eerie stretch of land overlooking the Cheat River. Stories grew darker by the hour. Someone said that Chris Thorne had asked to borrow a grinder the day after Bucky vanished. The word spread like poison. People started saying Bucky's body had been dismembered and buried in different places. Still, no hard evidence. No witnesses. Just noise. A storm of half-truths and fear. Captain Tichenal kept pushing. He ordered forensic tests, collected samples from Bucky's burned truck, and re-interviewed witnesses. What he found only deepened the mystery. Inside the truck, traces of blood were discovered. On the center console, the steering wheel, the passenger seat, and even the gear shift. Outside, investigators found zip ties near Bucky's home. It looked like he had been bound, possibly forced into his own vehicle. But the amount of blood didn't match a fatal wound. Wherever Bucky's life had ended, it wasn't in that truck. Through each interview, one truth cut through the noise. Bucky wasn't the kind of man to invite danger. His life was simple, His enemies, if any, were quiet ones. Weeks passed. The river had long stopped whispering secrets, and the gossip began to fade, replaced by something heavier. Silence. The sheriff's office chased down every rumor. Phone records were pulled. Search warrants were served. Still nothing. No arrests. No confessions. No closure. Mary kept Bucky's porch light on every night. His family gathered for Sunday dinners, leaving an empty chair where he used to sit. It became both a memorial and a reminder that justice hadn't arrived. Then, in January 2020, months after the case had gone cold, Captain Tichnell decided to start over. He went back to the very beginning, rewatching body cam footage, rereading statements, and re-examining every single detail from those first chaotic days. That's when something small, something seemingly meaningless, caught his attention. A tiny inconsistency in the alibi of Bucky's next-door neighbors, Laura Martin and Robert Bobby Quinn. It wasn't about fingerprints or DNA. It was about a lie, quiet, subtle, and dangerous. And that small lie would blow the case wide open. Captain Travis Tichnell sat in his office one cold January morning, surrounded by dusty case files, old statements, and hours of body cam footage. He had read it all before. Every line, every rumor, every desperate guess. But one detail kept tugging at him. The neighbor's alibi. Laura Martin and Robert Bobby Quinn, the couple who lived right next door to Bucky. They'd been interviewed the very morning his burned truck was found. Their story seemed ordinary. They were home that night, they said, but didn't hear anything because their washing machine was running. Weeks later, when re-interviewed in July, they told a slightly different version, that they'd had their air conditioner blasting all night. At first glance, it sounded trivial, but something about it didn't sit right. Captain Tichnell decided to check. He called Mary Butler, Bucky's partner, who had returned to their Tunnelton home right after his disappearance. When asked, she was certain, absolutely certain, that there was no air conditioning unit in that south-facing window until late June or early July. If that was true, then Laura and Bobby were lying. It was a small crack in a thick wall of silence, but in investigations like these, small cracks are where the truth begins to leak through. Tichnell dug deeper. He discovered that Laura and Bobby didn't even own a washing machine at the time of Bucky's disappearance. Their alibi, the one they repeated twice, was built entirely on a lie. He knew now. These weren't innocent neighbors. They were hiding something. The captain began rechecking every aspect of their story. Where had they said they were that night? With family, working on a truck they'd claimed. But when officers followed up, none of the family members could confirm that timeline. They remembered no such repairs, no visit, nothing out of the ordinary. Then came the break that changed everything. A relative of Laura's came forward with a chilling claim. Laura had confessed to the murder. According to that family member, Laura had admitted that she and Bobby had heard Bucky kept cash on him, that he might have money in the house. They planned to rob him using BB guns made to look like real pistols. But when the robbery went wrong, when they realized Bucky had only $50 in his pocket, greed turned into panic, and panic turned into murder. In early 2020, Laura Martin and Bobby Quinn were arrested in Maryland for a series of storage unit burglaries. They were both sitting in jail, and that gave Captain Tichnell a chance. He had their phone calls monitored. Days passed, then weeks. Dozens of recorded conversations. Most were ordinary, even flirtatious. But one stood out. Laura wasn't talking about Bucky. She was talking to another man. The conversations were explicit, intimate, proof that she'd been unfaithful to Quinn. When investigators played the recordings for Bobby Quinn, they didn't need to ask a single question. His face changed. His voice cracked. He asked for a deal. Bobby claimed it had all been Laura's idea. He said she had heard that Bucky carried money, and that on the night of May 29th, She waited outside his door for him to leave for work. When he stepped out, she confronted him. A struggle broke out. Quinn said he joined in only after things escalated. According to his account, they forced Bucky into his own truck, zip-tied him, and drove toward Fortney Mills, a quiet area known for its waterfalls and swimming holes. There, beneath the bridge over Three Fork Creek, they made him get out.
Give him your wallet, man. You said give him the wallet? Yeah. And what else? His money. Okay. And where was Laura standing at this time? Right where I'm standing? Okay. Where were you standing? I was standing pretty much where he's at. Okay. Okay, but he was on his knees at this time? Yeah. Okay. Did he resist going down on his knees? No. Okay. And she stabbed him in the neck and threw him in the water. Okay. Now, did you see her shove him into the water? No. Okay. You just assumed that she did? Yeah. Did you ever ask her what she did with him? Yeah, she said, well, he's in the water now, we'll get hard to find. Okay.
Bobby said Laura threw Bucky's wallet into the river. Then she ordered him to get on his knees. He claimed he turned away. He claimed she cut Bucky's throat. But even as he told it, inconsistencies began to pile up. In one version, Laura attacked Bucky first. In another, they both did. In one, Bucky was already dead before reaching the river. In another, he was still alive when they left. The details changed, but one thing didn't. Both of them were there, and both of them were guilty. Captain Tichnell didn't stop there. If Quinn was finally talking, he wanted to test every piece of that story. He took Bobby back to every location he mentioned: the road, the bridge, the riverbank. Bobby described setting the truck on fire, burning clothes, and throwing away evidence near the caves. Every word he spoke painted a clearer picture of how a simple plan to steal $50 turned into a horrifying night of violence. Still, something about his story didn't feel whole.
Now, earlier down at the stream, you told us that he reached behind him when he was sitting on that ledge to give her his wallet.
Yeah,
that's when he got the wallet.
Yeah, hey, Bobby, come on.
Dude, you just told us he gave the wallet to her twice.
Your wallet, your version of this story has changed 6 times just since we've been here. Okay?
Yeah. They told her, she told him to give me.
Bobby, you were here when this started, right? Yeah, you were.
No, I was over at the house.
You were down here. Okay? There's just no doubt about that.
Yeah, I come down after I seen her heading. Yeah, I was here.
You would not send your woman out to fight with a full-grown man by herself to try and rob him. I don't think that anybody would stand in the window and watch from 100-ish yards away while their woman went out to rob and, sounds like, deliberately kill a man.
The captain wanted to hear Laura's side, without her knowing that Bobby had already turned on her. He would get his chance soon enough. If you're following this far, what do you make of it? Was Bobby trying to save himself? Or was Laura really the mastermind? Let me know your thoughts below. And if this story has you hooked, hit that like button so more people can find it. When Laura Martin finally sat across from Captain Tichnell, she didn't know that Bobby had already confessed. She thought the two of them were still holding the same story, the same silence. But the truth was already unraveling. Tichnell watched her closely as she spoke, calm and measured, her eyes darting toward the camera on the table. At first, she denied everything. She said she and Bobby had been home that night. They didn't hear a thing. They didn't even know Bucky was missing until the police came knocking. Then, as the questions grew sharper, she began to shift. Laura, softly, we didn't mean for it to go that far. It was the first crack.
It's kind of one of the parts that I'm a little bit trying to get my head wrapped around. Guy's walking out, gets a gun shoved in his face, gets attacked, tries to be bound with zip ties, and then you just kind of, fine, I'll go with you. It seems like we're glossing over something that's not making a lot of sense to me.
No, I mean, there was a hell of a scuffle. I would say the scuffle probably lasted like half hour, if not longer. and I think he was just getting tired of it.
Bit by bit, she began to paint her own version of the night of May 29, 2019. A version that made her look like a reluctant witness, not a killer. But as she spoke, the picture became darker than anything Tichenor expected. The night of the murder. According to Laura, it began as a robbery gone wrong.
I was down on my knees and I was rocking back and forth because I was freaking out. I wanted to stop this. It didn't even happen like this. Okay. And then he was like, "Are you going to help me or what?" And I was sitting there rocking, holding my head like this.
Do you think Bucky was dead at that point already? Was he still moving at all?
No.
No, okay.
No, he was really white.
Okay. I'm kind of having trouble getting my mind wrapped around something that you said a few times that Bucky put up a hell of a fight.
Yeah, he
Got
did
him,
at his
I think
house.
your words where he got his licks in.
Yeah.
But then he gets down here with a gun to his head up at the vehicle, comes down here and then just submits to get on his knees. You've got to know that he's going to be
They
murdered.
scuffled.
Okay.
They fought back and forth. Bobby started got knocked away from him. And then Bobby pulled out the box cutter and said, "You know, how much you fucking fight, you're gonna die."
Okay.
And I froze. I was like, "What the fuck do you mean?" And Bobby started freaking out. He's like, "He knows who we are. He knows who we are."
What was Bucky saying at that time?
He was like, "I won't say nothing. I won't say nothing. I just want to go to work." And I was just like, "Let him go to work. If he says something, it's a burglary or a robbery, but it's not a death."
She and Bobby waited in the shadows outside Bucky's house, holding BB guns they'd bought to look real. They thought they'd scare him, grab whatever cash he had, and disappear before anyone noticed. But Bucky wasn't the kind of man to back down. When he stepped outside to leave for work, he spotted them. The second he realized what was happening, he fought back. Laura described him as stronger than he looked. He hit, kicked, pushed, refused to surrender. Even as they tied his hands with zip ties, he broke free. They panicked. They wore gloves and masks they'd bought from Walmart, but Bucky recognized their voices. He looked straight at Laura and said he knew who they were. That's when fear turned to fury. They forced him into his truck, drove through the night toward Fortney Mills, and stopped near the bridge at Three Fork Creek. There, under the cold moonlight, Bucky's life ended. When Laura described what happened next, the room seemed to shrink. Even the officers listening to the recording years later said her tone was chillingly calm. She said Bucky fought Bobby again near the water. That's when Bobby used a box cutter, one they'd carried to cut zip ties if needed. She claimed it slipped from his hand during the struggle and disappeared into the river. But her story twisted again. In one breath, she said Bobby did it. In the next, she said she tried to stop him. Then, quietly, almost like a whisper meant only for herself, she admitted that she held the knife too. Laura, flatly, he was making this gurgling sound, like he was trying to talk. I thought it was the coolest thing I ever heard. That single sentence silenced the room. She said after the killing, still with Bucky's blood on her hands, they rummaged through his truck, took the lunch he'd packed for work, and ate his sandwiches. It wasn't just cruelty, it was coldness, a total absence of humanity. Investigators would later confirm that many details Laura gave, the type of wound, the location, even the lost box cutter, matched forensic evidence no one outside the case could have known. No remorse, no tears, just emptiness. When investigators asked what they did next, she said they burned their clothes near River Road, then returned home like nothing happened. The next day, they watched the news together, waiting to see if anyone had found the truck. That night, they slept beside each other, while Bucky's body drifted silently down the river. With both confessions in hand, each blaming the other but agreeing on the same horrific facts, the Preston County Sheriff's Office finally made it official. Laura Martin and Robert Bobby Quinn were charged with first-degree murder, robbery, and kidnapping. When the community heard, there was shock but also disbelief. These weren't strangers. They were Bucky's neighbors, the same people who had shared meals and conversations with him for years. In small towns, betrayal cuts deeper because trust runs thicker. Mary Butler, Bucky's partner, could barely bring herself to return to the house after learning the truth. He was so close to retirement, she told reporters. We had our new home ready. He just wanted peace. Her voice broke when she added, they took everything from him, and for what? $50. As the case went to court, the evidence spoke for itself. The lies, the alibis, the confessions, it was all there. Prosecutors didn't need to dramatize it. The horror was already in the simplicity of it all. Two people, desperate for money to pay an electric bill, had slaughtered a man whose only plan that night was to go to work. Even the judge, hardened by years on the bench, said the crime showed a level of depravity beyond comprehension. By the spring of 2021, nearly 2 years after Bucky's murder, justice finally took its slow but certain course. The courthouse in Preston County was packed. Family, friends, and townsfolk who had followed every twist of the case. Outside, the air was heavy, gray, and quiet, as though the mountains themselves were holding their breath. Inside, Laura Martin and Robert "Bobby" Quinn sat at the defense table, no longer the smug pair who once thought they'd gotten away with murder. The prosecution outlined their crime in cold detail. The plan to rob a neighbor, the use of BB guns to threaten him, the brutal way they took his life, and the attempt to destroy evidence afterward. The motive was painfully small, $50 and unpaid electricity bills. When the judge finally spoke, his words were deliberate, almost trembling with restrained outrage. This was an act of greed and cruelty against a man who showed you kindness. You didn't just take his life, you took peace from this entire community. The courtroom was silent. Then the sentence fell like a hammer. Both Laura Martin and Robert Quinn were given life in prison plus 180 years, 1 count for murder, 1 for robbery, and 1 for kidnapping. The recommendation of mercy they had hoped for, which might have allowed parole after 15 years, was rendered meaningless by the additional sentences. The courtroom sighed, not with relief, but with the hollow sound of grief finally settling. After the sentencing, Bucky's family stood to speak. His sister said softly, he spent his whole life working for one dream, to retire and rest. He was days away. They stole that from him. Mary Butler, his partner of 17 years, couldn't hold back her tears. She clutched a small framed photo of Bucky, smiling in a baseball cap, hands on his hips, his eyes warm. He wasn't just my partner. He was my home. Every mile he drove, he called me to tell me he was safe. And the one night I didn't hear from him, he never came back. Every person in that room could feel her pain, the ache of a life built together, cut short for nothing. Even the deputies who had worked the case looked down, fighting back tears. They'd seen violence before, but something about Bucky, his gentleness, his ordinary goodness, made this feel unbearably wrong. In Tunnelton and Kingwood, people still talk about Bucky Barlo. Not the way you talk about a crime, but the way you talk about a person who mattered. Kids he taught to roller skate still remember how he'd cheer when they finally stayed upright. Neighbors recall his laugh echoing from his porch at sunset. A small wooden cross still stands by the road near where his truck was found. Hand-painted letters reading, Bucky, forever loved. The story of Bucky Barlo ends not with a twist, but with a truth that evil doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it lives just next door. In the end, it wasn't high-tech forensics or anonymous tips that solved the case. It was a single lie about a washing machine and an air conditioner that pulled the mask off two murderers. The smallest falsehood can unravel the biggest secrets. And for a town that once whispered rumors in every corner, it became a reminder that truth doesn't stay buried forever. So what do you think about this case? Was this simply desperation turned deadly, or something colder, something born out of the absence of empathy? In the end, maybe the hardest part isn't understanding how they killed Bucky, but why? Because when someone can take another person's life for $50, it forces all of us to ask what's become of compassion, of conscience, of humanity. Bucky's story will always be tragic, but his memory, kind, gentle, hardworking, still stands as a quiet rebellion against that darkness. He just wanted to retire, Mary said once. That was his dream. Now I hope he's resting. Somewhere peaceful, somewhere kind. What do you think? Did justice truly prevail, or is there more to the story? Leave your thoughts in the comments below and subscribe for more jaw-dropping true crime stories. Until next time, stay aware, stay safe, and always look a little deeper. This is True Crime Diaries, where every story has a pulse.